Welcome to Solo Pro Radio. This is Jackie B. Peterson, author of Better, Smarter, Richer, 7 Business Principles for Solo, Creative, and Encore Entrepreneurs. You know, solopreneurship is the business model of the 21st century. It is a model that is growing rapidly. More and more and more people are choosing to be in charge of their own career, their own future, their own destiny by creating the solo business that they have always wanted. They're finally getting to do what they've always wanted to do. And solopreneurship is one of the ways to do that. So if you are a solo, take a look at the 7 Principles in Better, Smarter, Richer. It's a fill-in-the-blank study book, a study guide, a workbook, and learn what you need to learn to make your solo business successful. Solo businesses absolutely are different and distinctly different from traditional businesses, and there's some things you need to do to be successful as a solo, and that's what the book is all about. You can find it at my website, www.bettersmarterricher.com. You can also sign up for our free newsletter and join the conversation on the blog, which is pretty active. So we'd love to have you join the solo team. So today, as my guest, I have Heidi McBride. Heidi designs with art. That's what she does, space design with original art. Her mission is to help people integrate original fine art into their homes, offices, and public spaces in more meaningful and intentional ways. She's a native Oregonian who studied at the University of Oregon and graduated from the University of San Francisco. She had an active career in communication, advertising, sales, business development, and design before she started her company, Heidi McBride Art. Please help me welcome Heidi McBride. Hello, Heidi.
Hi, Jackie.
I'm so glad you can be here today. I think you've got an interesting business, and I want to learn all about it.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, Heidi, talk about, you growing up and all of your career before you turned to a focus on art. In other words, kind of what's your background and what led you to beginning Heidi McBride Art eventually?
Oh my gosh! Well, probably like many solos, it's been It's been a little bit of a windy path in all sorts of good ways. Actually, my parents met in art school in Colorado in the late '60s and moved to Portland, which was a very different city than it is now at the time. So they definitely have sort of a pioneering spirit about them. And I grew up just in a really creative household. As I mentioned, they're both doing art. My dad was in the business world. But on the side, they were always inventing little products, and like even my mom invented a device to help me stop sucking my thumb and ended up marketing it to dentists. So, my sister and I, when we were really little, were at the table packaging these things and being very much a part of those conversations and activities. And then, as I was young too, I was always just making things and creating little spaces for myself. I remember in elementary school, claiming a corner of the living room and sort of fashioning it in a way that felt really homey and comfortable for me. And even later in middle school, getting to pick out all the things from my bedroom. And I even found this wallpaper that wasn't quite right. And my mom and I spent like a week on ladders painting each of the flowers that were brown pink because that's what I wanted. So I look back and I realized, my gosh, I was doing my own custom interiors long before I knew it. And in grade school and all through high school, I was involved in art programming. And, of course, college came along, and I started off on the art and design course, but kind of got swallowed up with a big school at U of O. And eventually found my way to a really amazing school at the heart of San Francisco, but called University of San Francisco. It's much smaller scale, more interactive, more personal, and I thrived in that environment. But it didn't have an art program, and I strayed and found my way in the world of communication. And so I've done a lot of things throughout my career. In fact, as I mentioned, it was a windy road. I've worn a lot of different hats sort of on the search. Probably one of the longer roles I had was publishing the performing arts programs for 5 of Portland's largest theater and performing arts groups, the opera and the symphony and so on. And so that was really my first formal foray into bridging people with the arts. And, of course, also supporting people in their communication with a greater audience. And so at the heart of everything I've done has been this experience-based design, even though it wasn't always clear to me at the time.
Huh. That's really cool. That's really cool. It's quite a journey. So
yes.
So you're telling me that you've always been interested in art and always had it as part of your life. So how did you move out of your career that you did in, business development and communication and finally decide to start your own company?
Well, good question. I have always been interested in art, although kind of, as I've said, it's been more organic and less of a formal or sort of structured relationship with art. Many people think of galleries as a little more formalized. I've always had more of this sort of innate, experience-based, emotional-based connection with art. And, like I said, I've kind of always been playing this role of bringing people together and helping create meaningful experiences in one form or the other. And I've been doing the publishing role for some time, and I, was enjoying it immensely and feeling very connected with the city of Portland and everything happening. And at that time, I was actually living in an artist community in Northwest Portland and just surrounded by all these talented people. And in fact, looking back, I've always seemed to attract these really talented artists and naturally would end up in this role of offering them or being asked for advice or business advice. So that was happening on the one hand, very, organic. I hadn't thought much about that. And then when I was feeling like I had run my course with the performing arts programming, but it was still this amazing job that it was just hard to think of what I would do after that. So I really started just making lists. Here's the qualities, bringing people together, art, design, connectedness, experience. And at the same time, I was looking around Portland unconsciously at first, but then it came to my consciousness and seeing that I go to a restaurant, right, and they would have art on the wall, and I would always take notice of that. And say it was this great, farm-to-table restaurant. They might have pictures of chickens on the wall. And I started thinking, gosh, a lot of times people are using this really literal art where what they're really trying to convey is that we do things very authentically. There's a lot of personal attention involved. And just starting to realize that there are ways that art can capture the essence of who a business is without being literal, and that sometimes there's more meaning or impact that can come from something that's a little less contrived. And I'd also see these other businesses where the art would actually, unaware of the business owner, work against what they were trying to create. So again, the restaurant analogy, it might be a really slow-paced, formal sit down and spend 3 hours having a nice meal kind of environment with art that was really frenetic or high energy or almost communicated, keep moving, turn over. But it looked pretty. And I was just, once I started seeing this, I couldn't stop. And so my initial hit with this was about seeing an opportunity to help people think about art in a way that's more thoughtful and more intentional. And on the personal side, I was also developing an art collection, buying art that I loved and filling my home. Later, I bought a house and I was filling my home with art. And I had guests in my house who would be, how did you get this art? And I said, what do you mean? I found it, I loved it, I bought it, or I made payments or whatever. And seeing that there were a lot of people in my life who had the means and the interest in owning original artwork that just genuinely didn't know where to start or felt overwhelmed or unqualified to, pursue that on their own. So with all these questions being asked of what to do with my life and making these observations, honestly, it was a painstaking process, that period of not exactly knowing what to do or how your life is meant to come together. But I just continually asked those questions. And eventually I just, in one big wave of inspiration, I had the whole concept for my business just popped in my brain, down to a lot of detail, which, as you and I have discussed, some of those things that I thought I needed to do that were so clear to me at the beginning eventually needed to let some of that go so that I could focus more on other parts. So that's been an interesting, aspect of getting to this point. It wasn't a clear-cut path, but that's how it happened for me.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct, with your perception that a lot of people want art and want to have original art, but don't even know where to begin. I think that there's a big population that is like that. As I say, I think your perception is right on. And has that become then the focus of your business, helping people integrate original art into their lives and their spaces?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I mean, when I first started, or even started talking about this, we're living in a town that is so supportive of, unique thinking and entrepreneurial thinking. Yeah, I found that the art world at the time, this is, 2006, 2007, here are the rules for how you get art to clients, and people in the traditional community were resistant to my way of thinking. And then a lot of feedback I just got from regular people was, wow, there's art everywhere. Why would someone need you? And I'm like, exactly, there is art everywhere. And one of the challenges people face, which has nothing to do with education or intelligence or even good taste or design skills, but it is overwhelming, and the way the pricing works in the art world is pretty mind-boggling, and it's not like you can go to Best Buy and have a comparative price. It feels really abstract to people. And so, a big part of my job actually, and how I work, one of the things that I do for clients is I constantly spend time meeting with artists, asking them about their process, understanding, like, are their techniques archival? Is this work that's being created that's going to, cost some money? Is it going to stand the test of time? Is it made with archival materials? Because a lot of artists, especially those who are maybe more self-taught, might produce beautiful work, but they've thrown everything but the kitchen sink in that painting to achieve their effects. And, who knows? The sugar that created that texture might be my aunt's in 2 years, So there are things you have to watch out for, but you wouldn't, if you just go on pure aesthetic alone, you might not always have serving.
You've had to not only train and learn your eye, use that inspiration or that gift that you have about understanding what mood or ambience somebody is trying to create and what art evokes the emotion or the feeling that people are trying to create. But you've also had to educate yourself about how an artist puts together or creates the work that they're doing so that you can be sure it's going to have long-term value. Is that what I hear you saying?
That's right. A big part of my job is vetting the work, making sure it's archivally produced, making sure the art is priced at a fair point that takes into consideration their career, their education, their commitment to their craft, their techniques, the complexity of the piece, the materials. And another thing that I put a great value on, and it's just my personal choice, is that the work was created in a way that was authentic. There are some incredible pieces of art out there and artists that are working where they found a look that people like, and they just keep making it again and again and again. And you're like, okay, here it is in 10 colors, and this year it's this color. And sometimes that can lose the emotive intent behind it. And even though the consumer or the buyer might still really connect with it, I try to support, and I like to work with those artists that are continuing to push themselves and create work that's really true to who they are. And I do feel like that comes across in the piece, and that the person who ends up owning that piece gets the benefit of that labor and energy and active, self-expression. So, but you're right. I mean, a big part of my job is looking at everything out there and reining it in for people, because it's when you're thinking about a piece of art for your home or redesigning your home or on the commercial side your lobby, how do you rein it in? I mean, so many people I meet have had this blank wall for years because it's too hard to eliminate choices. And so think of it like going to wine tasting, going to a great wine shop. They've done the curating for you. So when you sit down with that wine steward who's going to introduce you to some new wines, you may not think you know anything about wine, but you think you might like wine.
Yeah.
And so I'm like the wine steward. A big part of my job is clearing out all the clutter and saying, here are 5 wines I think you might like to try. Mm-hmm. And really encouraging you to just try it on in your heart. And if you hate it, great, tell me you hate it, because that helps me then hone in on the things I might introduce you to. With my ultimate goal for my clients, especially the residents and the clients making a personal purchase, is that they end up with a piece that they have an emotional connection with. It creates a feeling in them that they like and they want to live with. And I can't tell them what that is, but I can support them in that process while at the same time making sure it's the right price, it fits their budget, and then, of course, taking the design of the home into consideration. So I really have a lot of standards I'm wanting to meet with each placement of art, each connection for people.
And that, Heidi, is quite complex as you're talking about.
It really is, yeah.
You know, where you're taking the space, the feel, the desires of the owners, the quality of the artist, or as you say, the authenticity of the artist, the type of work that it is, is this an artist that is going to be growing? So will it have, lasting value, not just monetary value, but lasting value? Will it last? Will it, continue to be emotional for the owner? Wow, this is a lot of elements that you're taking into
Right, and then you add a husband and wife team. My favorite is they come to me, we never agree, good luck, Heidi, and then it's always a triumph when they both are excited and love the piece. I mean, I love it. The other thing that's interesting is a lot of people think they know what they are supposed to like. They grew up with, they might be really cutting edge in other elements of their life, but somehow they can only look at this one genre of art they grew up with. It's the only thing that feels right. And so sometimes for me, it's putting things in front of them and giving them permission to like something they didn't know they were supposed to like or think they were supposed to like. And it's fun. I mean, the process is really, really fun. It takes away all those aspects of the overwhelmedness and the not knowing and the lack. I also help people have confidence, because one of the things I've discovered when I do my job right and they fall in love with a piece that feels right for them and they put it on their wall, it is truly an act of self-expression on their part. It's so different than going to West Elm or going to IKEA or going to Mitchell Gold or wherever and picking out something that's been publicly approved as likable. It's personal, and that's a leap for people. And you don't think about it, but it really is, and that's a barrier that a lot of people have a hard time crossing on their own.
Wow.
That's why they end up with posters or something very commercial.
Yeah. So who are your clients?
So, my clients, some of my clients, so there's a common theme in my clients, I'd say, which is someone who has an interest in creating an impact in a space and is open to original art as a tool for doing that. And so I work with developers and architecture teams, like, for example, a new condo project where we're creating a feeling or a concept in a lobby, hotel group who wants to distinguish their property from other options in the city and sees, okay, art could be a tool for doing that, or business clients with space that they have clients that they host, or even maybe they just want their employees to feel good. And then on the other side of things, on the residential side, it's the family with a blank wall in their living room. Or I've worked with a number of empty nesters who are like, our kids are gone, let's make it our house. Where do we start, And then, of course, I absolutely love working with people who have just, maybe they've purchased a new home and they're really starting from scratch, tearing down walls. I work a lot with, starting with floor plans and elevations and truly from scratch. So it's always, and then there are a lot of folks who are changing their lifestyle. They might go from a more traditional home to a more open floor plan, and they find that the contemporary lines are really appealing, but that their antiques and the things that they love don't fit the space. And then I can work with them on the art, but also the larger design picture, and think about art and unique pieces as a tool for bridging the styles. So it really is a large, audience, but it doesn't come down to a specific interest in art as a tool for their
what
lives.
I wrote down about who your clients are is I wrote down it's anyone, whether it's a residential or commercial group with a blank wall and a desire to make an express statement about themselves, to others and to themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes
they don't know sometimes they don't know they want to make a statement.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't have to be a statement to other people. It can be a statement about, themselves in their own home to themselves, as well
Absolutely.
as maybe if you're a commercial making a statement, about yourself to your customers. But in your home, you could be making a statement that pleases just you, or care about anybody else.
Yeah.
So all these people with all these blank walls, how did they find you?
Well, most of my folks come from word of mouth or referrals. I have had some really wonderful press. And then, I work with interior designers. I have a group of interior designers that call on me because, what I do, the amount of energy and time it takes to know what's going on out there and what artists are doing, it just isn't something that you can just add to your repertoire of furnishings. It's a full-time job. So I'm a good partner to interior designers who can relate with and work with the process that I've got, and the designers who want to help people create a home that's really unique for them. So I really do rely a lot on my clients and people who know me to pass my name along.
Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful. That's fabulous. So have you had a big struggle in finding the clients that you want, or are they kind of flowing like the river now?
Well, it's definitely easier. Let me just say, the number one response I get when I tell people what I do is, wow, that's really fabulous. I know, and I'm like, somebody who's remodeling their house, a developer who has a condo? No, they know an artist. So getting the referrals to artists is really, there are so many artists out there, which is why vetting them and that part of the process is so important. But, I think the biggest challenge is what I do is different. People think of a traditional art consultant as coming in and telling them what to do. And I believe it's a missed opportunity to help someone have an aspect of their life that they maybe don't even know they're missing through that emotional connection. So there's kind of getting blanketed in with other art consultants can be a challenge. And then, galleries, they tend to have a set number of artists they represent, and their process is more about sort of pitching those artists or presenting those artists whom they really believe in, but they're beholden to sell their work. Whereas I'm more of a free agent on both ends and have all the flexibility in the world. So part of my challenge in finding the right clients is people really understanding what I can do for them and how it's different. And then, the other challenge can be, because people are used to working with different processes like those I described, a lot of designers will wait till the very end and be like, okay, we've got this wall, we need something red, we'd like a boat on it, can you send me some options? And, I could, but that's thinking more in more of a traditional way where art is just a space filler and predictive. And so, those are the biggest challenges, is really the real understanding of and then when to call, which ideally would be earlier in the process, so that if art wants to inform the process or some of the other choices, it can.
So early, because as you say, you're doing space design with original art. So if you can get somebody early in their thinking, planning, remodeling, reconstruction, new construction process, you can more and more make their wishes, their feelings, their desires, and, what you're manifesting in a piece or two or three of art, you can make that part of the entire design process for somebody. It's not an afterthought, let's add it after the walls are done. It's part of the entire creation of the space. So I can see how you would want to have people early.
Right, and either can work, but ideally early. And the other thing is, I do probably about 50% of the artwork that I help find homes for, people that I help find art for, is finished pieces of work that already exist. This is more like how you would think about a gallery. About half of what I do ends up being custom, site-based, very specifically created for my clients. And again, I'm still trying to create an opportunity that's authentic for the artist. I'm not saying, hey, I know it's kind of boring for you, but could you paint a red boat? It's more about, hey, I know you've always wanted to do this or this scale or wanted to re-enter this series of work. So it's, working with this space. The other thing about coming early on is there might be opportunities for art in ways that people never thought of. For example, right now I'm talking with someone who has a gorgeous penthouse condo in the Pearl District, and they're building a big building right in front of them. And basically they have a floor-to-ceiling wall in their kitchen, and they're going to be looking right at their neighbors. And so we're talking about how art could not only contribute something really amazing to the space, but also act as a visual barrier but still let light in. So we're thinking about fused glass or other ways we can engage an artist in doing something they're already doing naturally because it's what they're aligned with and it's their act of self-expression, but sort of interpreting it in a way that serves this client's needs as well as bringing something new into their life. So people don't know to think like that. It is very custom and conceptual, and so sometimes it's just giving me a call and saying, here's the laundry list of things we're trying to deal with. Does any of this speak to, bringing art in or bringing talent in, giving an artist an opportunity too? And what's cool is when you give an artist an opportunity that's in alignment with what they're dying to do or what they're dreaming of creating, you just get the most incredible art. And so it's knowing what these artists are dreaming of doing is a part of my job too.
That's just absolutely fabulous, that someone can tap into this wealth of knowledge that you have, created for yourself by studying and visiting and working with and understanding what various artists do. It sounds like you've got a veritable calendar and Rolodex and database of, fabulous artists and the type of work that they do and the things that they can do in your head. And on the other side, you've got a complete database of, spaces and what looks well. And, when a customer calls upon you, you match the two of them together and you make it work and you create the design that they want. Woo!
Like I said, it was an inspired idea. It didn't come from any logical thinking. But like you talk about solopreneurs and the difference between the way they think about their business. And as you've explained to me, I mean, it's a scenario where you are the heart of your business. I mean,
yes.
My process and who I am and what I bring together is so uniquely me. Like, it's just, I feel so fortunate that I found the coming together of all these skills and interests I have, and also just the tenure in Portland and having the network and building those relationships. I mean, it's all sort of played into this. And, then it just comes down to, okay, how do you do all these things I am good at, but also run a business and make a living and, keep my stress level under control. And that's where you in the program I've been through with you has been really helpful, because all the talent in the world without the business side.
So what I hear is that you're operating at a very high creative level whenever a customer calls upon you, because that's a pretty high level of thinking to be understanding, and getting information from them about their space and what they want to have happen and about what you're running through of what's possible. I'm thinking of the client with the floor-to-ceiling window and the building going up next door, and you've probably got your entire imagination on alert as you're looking at that, and you're mentally running through ideas that might work, and probably everything from plastering over the wall to doing something that is opaque and they can still get the light from the window. And, you know, I mean, there just must be a tremendous amount of mental activity going on when you're bringing all of this together. You're in high creative stance yourself. So
yes.
As you say, you are designing, and your design tool is the original art that you're bringing to the space.
Well, and part of my design tool, you know, sometimes I will do conceptual art and hire craftspeople or tradespeople to realize it, so in which case I can be acting almost as the artist. But 99% of the time, I'm thinking of these creative ideas, but I am pulling from this Rolodex of other people's art and their ideas, and they trusted me with their dreams. And so it really is this really high level of networking in a way, too. And then a big part of my job, once the client falls and connects with that person's art and their voice as an artist, then I become this sort of very high-level project manager, art director, sort of this role where, because then you are reinventing the wheel every time. You know, the artist hasn't done this in this particular space every time, so someone has to be there shepherding that process, almost like a general contractor. And so I do wear a lot of different hats, and I guess when it comes down to especially these site-based pieces, they're just highly, highly custom. And it doesn't always mean they have to be extremely expensive. I mean, that depends on the materials and the tenure of the artist and all sorts of other variables. But, you asked me earlier who's the right client. It's somebody who's open-minded, who doesn't have a completely firm, fixed idea of what they want. Because staying open, it's not so that I can convince them of something. It's so that they can discover something that's even better than they could have imagined. Just like what's happened with my career. I couldn't have imagined, this isn't one of the careers that came up when you take the test in high school. But, my test in high school said you could be a florist or a flight attendant or, the person who does makeup in the mortuary. I mean, it's like that list, right? So, keeping an open mind and sort of being in that space of not knowing but trying things on, that quality in a client, I think, really makes for a better process and a better result. And then, of course, they have to have some discretionary income. I mean, one of my favorite parts of the job is writing an artist a check and saying, you know what, they didn't buy this work to support you. They didn't buy this work because they thought they should. It would be a nice thing to do because you're a starving artist. They wrote this check, and I'm passing it on to you because your art is bringing something to their life. Yeah. And I love creating that possibility for both sides. It's pretty amazing.
I would think when you talk to them like that, Heidi, that the artist would they would understand how important what they do is, and how the impact that they're having on people who display their art. And I think sometimes all of us forget that, the impact we're having on other people. And, the way that you express that reminds them, brings it back to mind, and probably makes their work even better. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hope so.
So do you find that artists are happy to work with you? And, are you constantly on the lookout for artists?
I am constantly on the lookout for artists, so I definitely have more referrals to artists than I could possibly keep up with. But I'm always open to that. I think artists like working with me. I think of the relationship as a partnership. They're not beholden to me other than, to be committed to the project and to working with that client in a professional way. It's just a very different kind of opportunity than, might be out there through other avenues. Some artists, so one of the first questions I ask artists is, what is success for you? And some artists, it's being represented in a New York gallery and having their art featured in Art in America or being collected by a museum. And I'm not that path for them. I don't want to be that path. That's not right. But if they are looking to continue to create their work authentically, be consistent with their pricing and be in good communication and the things that I, expect and respect in the people I partner with. And they're open to getting the call from me when I have the right client saying, guess what, someone really loves your work. What do you have available? Or then I'm perfect fit for them. And they're great partnerships. And I hope and I think that the artists I work with are happy.
I can, one of my questions is what would make someone choose to work with you as opposed to finding their own art? And after talking with you for the last 20 minutes or so, I can clearly understand what that is, that, when you go out to find your own art, you don't have anywhere near usually the time or resources or judgment or even ability to articulate and identify things that would possibly be wonderful for you, for them. And here you are with all of these resources and all of these ideas. And am I right on that you're offering a wealth of resources and opportunities that, as you say, people can't even imagine themselves, that you're giving them things to think about that they never would have imagined or found or identified for themselves. Is that the main reason they're hiring you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are different reasons. Some people don't have the time, and they've had the experience of being in a gallery and all of a sudden, like, they're, whoa, how did this art get on my wall? Like, it became more of a logical choice than an emotional one, and starting to realize in the past I might have missed the opportunity to find the right piece, or might have felt like I may have regret about decisions they've made under those kind of situations. Now, on the other hand, that kind of scenario works really well for someone who is really, can be really connected with what they like and dislike and open about it. But a lot of people don't have that confidence. So there's those reasons. And then, part of it is, especially, on the residential, of course, as well, but especially on the commercial side, it can be where you start seeing the same players again and again. And those are those prolific artists who are go-getters, and you start seeing their work everywhere because it's accessible, it's turnkey. And I really strive to do something unexpected and original. If I'm helping a condo or a hotel lobby help distinguish themselves between the other options that somebody might be looking for as a place to stay or a place to live, I want someone to walk in the building and not be like, oh, that's so-and-so from so-and-so, and I saw them at the coffee shop down the street. Unless that's that client's goal, I like that it makes them stop and think and see something new, and it becomes more memorable. Yeah. So you can't really do that if you have a limited pool of artists, your 40 artists that your gallery represents, or if you don't spend as much time as I do in those studio visits, you just wouldn't possibly, there's no library to go to, Yeah. So that's one of my goals, and I think one of the reasons people want to work with me too.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, you've talked about working with people that want to find a way to begin to collect original art and, maybe don't know where to begin. So what kind of advice do you have for would-be or amateur art collectors who want to get started? Are there some basic principles of art collection and art buying that you help people with?
I think the first thing is, interestingly enough, just the word collection. So many people who are buying art, you would say, oh, you collect art. They, oh, no, I'm not a collector. I have a few pieces. So it's already a loaded word just to think about what it means to be a collector, And so even just that word and sort of the connotation that goes with it, I think can be part of the barrier. My advice
you're right on that. I'm thinking about it as you're talking, and it certainly does connote the idea that you're going to spend big money and wind up buying, masterpieces from the last century or something.
Yeah, or that you have a level of expertise, or people feel like I'm a phony if you say I'm a collector, but collector just means you're purchasing things you like, and at least that's my definition. So, don't worry about the terminology, and just start small. Decide you're going to have fun and you're going to spend $200 on art. If you find a piece, you have $200 of fun money or $500 of fun money, that if you find a piece that really speaks to you, whether it makes sense to you in your house or not, to know that you have that up to that limit to just buy it. Because I think a lot of people know that they might like owning art, but they never get past the, it doesn't match my couch, or I'm waiting for the piece that matches my couch, or whatever that may be. And so they never get to the point of bringing a piece home that may or may not have made sense, but with which they connected, and living with it, and being like, every day they get out of bed and they see that, and it will make them feel a certain way. You mentioned earlier it can evoke an emotion like pride, or I think of it as how many people would occasionally find this hand-knit, beautiful sweater and be like, wow, I don't want to spend $300 on a sweater that is so perfect, or a coat or whatever. I'm just going to splurge and get it. And they love it, and they love seeing it in their closet, but they only get to wear it once in a while, because it's so unique that they don't want to, wear it every day. If you buy a piece of art under that same sort of premise, you just don't know what it will bring to your life. You just don't know how much it's going to give back. And so break that barrier. Buy that first piece. It could be $20. It doesn't matter. Forget the archival part. Just buy a piece that feels safe in your budget and have fun with it. And I think what happens when people do that or start doing that is they get it. They're like, oh, I get it. I get it. And then they want more because they see what they get in return.
So in a sense, it's like the artistic version of buy local. In other words, what you're saying is look for things that are handcrafted, that are handmade, that are hand-developed, that are, not machine posters and, not machine prints of things, but look for something that a creator did, no matter how big or how small, that, they've really got their heart and soul in that piece, and, it's probably one of a kind, it's probably an original, and leap in and bring it home, Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
The art version of buy local?
It's partly that, but I have to say one thing. Buy local, to me, is also a campaign to think about the greater good. Think about our environment. Think about, trucks on the road. Think about yourself, but also think about the greater good. The art piece, there's a lot of campaigns to support artists. A lot of emphasis on how can we support artists, because we know that they create culture because they're interesting and they do nice things with buildings, and we should support artists so we get a nice community. And I'm like, that's important and that's great. A lot of people are covering that. I feel like it's got to be about how do you support people in becoming collectors because they learn what it does for their life. And so it's taking it away from doing something you should for the greater good and making it completely self-centered. Find a piece of art you love, yes, that's locally created and that's authentically created and hand-created, so that piece, of course. But buy it because you love it, not because you should, and then see what it does in your life, and then everybody wins.
That's wonderful. I love that, and I appreciate that clarity. So, and what advice do you have for artists who want to sell more of their work? It's a different time now than when I started in 2006, and it's amazing. The world has opened up, and there are no more, at least in Portland, I will say, there are no more judgments. There aren't big judgments about you did what? You hung your work in a coffee shop, or you sold your work online. When I started, some tenured artists who had quite the careers going would never have thought of an alternative method because they would have thought it would have reflected poorly on their, stature. Or would have said, oh, I'm not cutting it in the gallery world, so I'm lowering myself to do this other thing. But now times have changed. There's a million ways to get your work to market and a million ways to be acceptable in your approach. And so my advice to artists is be open to the path that works for you.
And, one of my big pet peeves and one of the important things that to me is that the artists have integrity in their pricing, their consistency in pricing, their consistency in quality. There are still a lot of artists, more on the emerging end that, I price it this way at this coffee shop and this way at this museum, and I like this piece better than that piece, so I price it higher. And I'm really very much around setting standards for yourself and being consistent, because I'm about protecting that client's investment and not alienating collectors. So the artists have to do their part too. So, that would be my two main schools of thought on that. And just be open. There are just a million ways for artists to make their career, and there's no formula. There's just no formula anymore. What works for one person doesn't work for someone else.
More of them seem to be making it as a career. I think there's been a national recognition of how important art is to our culture in all kinds of different ways. And, I know whenever I travel or any community that I go to, one of the things that's wonderful always is to take a look at the local art and the local artists, and I see more and more communities supporting them in all kinds of ways, as you say, in all kinds of shows and exhibits and ways that they can bring in the general public to see what they're doing, whether it's television or radio shows or exhibits in restaurants or galleries or whatever is happening. I think there's really been an upsurge in the interest in art in the community, and that people are very interested in it. And as you say, artists have a million ways to bring their products to market these days. I think you're correct in that. So
right, yeah. Well, and if you look at historically, right, art was always coveted and acknowledged and valued as part of the community. If you look at the cathedrals in Greece or in Italy, it's just, and I don't know how it fell out of fashion, if that's even what happened, but I would say that, with the shift in the economy and this new value on innovation and on thinking outside the box and on a demand and people creating this opportunity to be authentic and real, we're now looking at artists and going, wow, we didn't get what you were doing before, but all of a sudden we really respect that you are able to be this way, and we want to be that way, and we want a piece of that. So it is such an interesting time, I think.
Yes, it is. So, Heidi, you participated in the Better, Smarter, Richer study group and program. Has that helped your business?
Oh, my gosh, Jackie, absolutely, yes. Well, maybe in just talking with me, you can tell that my brain goes a million directions at once, or it can, and, that serves me in some ways, but it's also been a little bit of an obstacle when it comes to having a real focused business. And so the Better, Smarter, Richer program really helped me ask myself the tough questions and focus in on some of the key things that would make my business more successful and make me more, less stressed, I think, and less feeling divided all the time with these million things I want to accomplish and so forth. So that was great. And then also just having making a commitment to you and with you that I am going to take this period of time to work on these things, because it's hard to justify that day to day. And then working with other people as part of our group that were doing the same thing was also really, really cool, and getting other opinions and focused other opinions on your business. That's such a luxury. It's just awesome.
It's wonderful to do that, isn't it? And I've enjoyed having you in my program.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So we've had a great conversation going here. I love it, and I love what you're doing. I think you're on a tremendous track for your business. That your clients are lucky to find you, and you offer them a huge service and a huge wealth of knowledge and understanding. And I know that there are going to be some people who are listening to this who want to connect with you. So can you give us some contact information?
Yes, absolutely. My website is HeidiMcBrideArt.com. And my email is Heidi@HeidiMcBrideArt.com. Our phone number is 503-887-3093. And I would, reach out, give me a call. And if you, remember that it is those personal contacts and people hearing the show who think, I know a friend who could use your help. So if you have a thought like that and you want to send them my way, please do. Very organic how this is evolving, and I appreciate all of the support from anyone. And I'd love to answer questions or help and support you or anyone in owning art in whatever way I can.
Well, I want to thank you very much for your time, and it's been exceedingly interesting, and I hope that a few people are picking up the phone to give you a call, and that you, because I know you can help them better design their space, whether it's an interior residential or commercial space using original art. I think that's a great concept.
Yes, my call volunteers are standing by. The phone to ring.
Yes. And listeners, this is Jackie B. Peterson, your host today on Solo Pro Radio. And I want to remind you not to just call Heidi, but also go to the Better, Smarter, Richer website and sign up for our free newsletter, download that book, and do the work in the book so that you can gain the skills that you need to be very successful as a solo entrepreneur. Most business books are about the traditional business model. Better, Smarter, Richer is about the new coming model for the 21st century, solopreneurship. It's distinctly different, and there's some things that you need to do that you won't find anywhere else other than in Better, Smarter, Richer. So I hope you'll do that. I hope you will sign up for the newsletter, join the conversation on the blog, and also tune in next week to our Solo Pro Radio. So this is Jackie B. Peterson. Thanks again for being with us today. Goodbye.